Hello my beautiful friends, welcome back to Studio Rapport. My name is Rachel and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how I created this Powerwash Tumbler. It is a very simple design, nothing super complicated here. I saw the quote on Pinterest. It says she's bright like glitter and bubbly like champagne, and I knew that this had to go on a cup. If you know me personally, you know I love champagne. It is my absolute favorite. I feel like there's always a reason to celebrate, and now I have the perfect tumbler to go along with it. So let's go ahead and jump into the tutorial. In today's tutorial, I'm using a 16-ounce wine tumbler that I got from the Steel Magnolia. They are by far my favorite place to get my tumblers from, and I really like the size of this one too. It's only a little bit different from a 12-ounce, but I feel that it has an easier grip, or maybe it's just an excuse to have a bigger wine glass. I'm not sure, but I do prep my tumblers the same way every single time. I just scrape them down really good with a 120 grit sanding block. Want to make sure that all of that coating from the factory comes off, so all of my layers from here on out will adhere really nicely. After I'm done sanding the whole top and then the bottom as well, I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick wash off, and then we are ready to spray paint. The spray paint that I'm using is the Montana Gold Matte. I do really like this color whenever I'm doing gold for a base. I have already spray painted my cup outside. I did 2 nice even coats. And for applying my glitter, I'm going to use Mod Podge. I don't need a lot of working time for this. Since I'm only using one glitter, I'm not going to mess with epoxy. It's more work than is really necessary. So I just make sure that I have a nice even coat of Mod Podge all around the cup, including the rim of the cup. I always find that it kind of pulls away from the rim, so I always double check that area before I apply my glitter. And the glitter that I'm using was one of the first glitters I ever bought. It was from Michaels, the line We Are Memory Keepers, and it's just a polyester gold glitter. You can see I dumped it all over the table, which if you make tumblers, you understand it is a messy process to begin with, but being a little clumsy certainly does not help. I always do 2 different layers of glitter just to make sure that everything has a nice even coating to it. I let the Mod Podge and glitter dry for about 3 hours before I applied my first layer of epoxy. I did forget to film that part, so in this part I'm on my second coat. The epoxy that I use is by Counterculture DIY. It's the Artist Resin Epoxy, and I've always loved it. It's the only one I've ever used and always get fantastic results from it. So after the first coat of epoxy, I let that sit and dry for 4 to 6 hours and then went in with my second coat. I do always make sure after each coat of epoxy I touch the cup with a blowtorch just to make sure that if there are any micro bubbles, they are being popped before it is allowed to fully cure. I let my epoxy dry and spin for a good 12 hours before sanding down my cup. I always start, which unfortunately I'm sorry you can't see, I have a really sharp craft knife and I am going along the top of the rim of the cup to get any epoxy that may have spilled over, if any. And then I go in with a medium grit sanding block. I don't know what the number is on this one, it just says medium. And I give the rim of the cup a really good sand down. I always expose a very thin line of stainless steel up at the top. This way when I go in for my final coats of epoxy, the epoxy creates a seal around the side of the cup and not the top of the cup. Once I am happy with the rim, I will work my way around the cup and feel really gently with my fingers to see if there's any sharp bits sticking up. And then also really focusing on the bottom of the cup as well. This is the last time we're really going to be able to sand it down and get it smooth. So you really want to make sure with this particular design that you really take your time and make sure it's sanded down super smooth. And if you need to add another epoxy because it's just not smooth enough, go ahead and do that. After washing and drying my cup off really well, we're going to head outside for the most exciting part of this whole process. Make sure before you start there's no clogs in your spray paint nozzle or your power wash, and you have to work pretty fast with this. You can see it's really windy outside, which was not ideal, but this was my only option. I sprayed on the power wash and then made sure I had a nice even coat of my spray paint, and then go ahead and just dump water over it. And it's like magic. It just comes right off and then you're left with this beautiful design. I let my cup dry for about an hour before I sealed it in. I'm using a silicone brush that I think I got from Amazon and Counterculture DIY's Quick Coat, which is a urethane sealer. I use this every time I have to seal a project and I've always had really great results from it. Also, I will say I messed up in this process. Before applying my vinyl decal, I should have epoxied my cup again because it was not smooth enough, and I honestly don't know what I was thinking. So if you're watching this tutorial, pause at this point and put another layer of epoxy on to make sure that it is smooth, because I had a really, really difficult time with this vinyl. Not only did I have a difficult time applying the vinyl, for whatever reason, I always struggle with vinyl decal colors. I had this really pretty like holographic bubble for my offset, and it was like this pretty coral color. But after I had my letters on top of it, it just blended way too much. So I stuck it back down on the paper and went back to the drawing board and just went with a normal white vinyl, which I'm so happy that I did because it just popped so much more than the original coral color. I took a really good look at my cup to try to figure out which side I wanted to apply the decal to. I wanted to cover up an area that had a lot of gold glitter underneath. I wanted to have as much of that spray paint power wash exposed as possible. And I don't know if you can tell now, this cup, the vinyl just did not lay down nice. Again, this is where that extra coat of epoxy would have really come in. I trimmed so much out of this video. It took me a good half hour to get almost all of the bubbles out of this. I honestly, if this wasn't just my own cup for my personal use, I would have ripped off the vinyl and done it all over again because it was just a hot mess. And to ensure that our final coats of epoxy go on drama-free, I'm once again going to seal this vinyl with the Counterculture DIY Quick Coat, let that sit for a good 45 minutes or so, and then go into our final layers of epoxy. This cup did wind up taking 2 final coats of epoxy to make it super smooth. I don't remember how many mLs I used each time, probably no more than 15 because this isn't a large cup. I always do multiple cups at a time, so I never really know exact measurements, but you just want to make sure you have 2 nice even coats of epoxy. After I apply it, I do again go over it with my little culinary torch to pop any micro bubbles if there are any, especially really taking a good look at that vinyl. That's the last thing you want to see, is a little bubble on top of your vinyl work. I let my cup spin and dry for a good 12 hours before I start the cleanup process. You really do manhandle the cup, so you want to make sure it is good and dry before you start that. I always clean up my cups the same way. I start with a really sharp craft knife and remove any excess epoxy on the rim of the cup, as well if any little droplets have spilled inside. Then I take pure acetone on a paper towel, and I have the acetone in a little nail polish pump bottle, and it's super convenient. I will go through this a couple times just to make sure that there's no residual residue on the inside. And then I will go ahead and give it a good wash with a mild dish detergent and the same sponge or brush that I use for every single cup. That is it for today's tutorial. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed making this cup. I already have a few more to make that were special requests. If you did like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It really helps support my channel. I will leave everything that I use down in the description box down below. And also, if you have not subscribed, please do so. I would love to have you part of my YouTube family. I hope you guys all have an amazing rest of your day. And until next time, bye.